Hey everyone, welcome back to Dear Younger Me. My name is Jamie, and today's episode we are going to talk about family and kind of what that's supposed to look like. So in the Bible, it talks about how you are supposed to leave your family to be with your husband. So once you get married, or wife, once you get married, you're supposed to leave the household. And then you are to, you are to be fruitful and multiply. So have kids. And that's kind of what the Bible talks about. And I feel like nowadays there's a lot of like single parent households. There's a lot of dysfunction within families. A lot of like people in America have gotten divorced, and like that leaves a lot of broken families out there. And for whatever reason it is, right? It could just be people didn't want to work out the relationship, or someone cheated, or someone passed away, or maybe you're living in a household where your parents are married but it feels like they aren't because of the miscommunication, because of the fights, just because of the lack of love. And I wanted to speak a little bit about that and just say that is not how it's supposed to be. Honestly, I feel like in the perfect world, in God's world, you're supposed to have a mom and a dad who love you, who care for you, who can support you, who can talk to you about healthy boundaries, how to make hard choices, how to listen to the Holy Spirit, how to listen to God. And there's supposed to be, like a role model. There's supposed to be role models for you on how to grow up in your faith. And yeah, it just makes me really sad that nowadays, like, people aren't really given the tools or the skill sets on how to become good parents. And they don't even realize that there are tools and skill sets out there that you can use in order to be good parents, or as good of a parent that you want to be or desire to be. And I guess we can talk about communication. I feel like one of the issues that at least I've seen in my family when it comes to like my parents is, well, I guess it's just my mom because my dad's not here anymore, but like even between my communication with her or seeing her communicate to other people in my family, and like even my grandparents, right? Like my grandma and my mom, or my grandma and my grandpa, because I used to live with them. Like it's like communication. There's two parts. There's implicit communication, there's explicit communication. Explicit meaning you kind of say how you see it and there's no sugarcoating, you just kind of say it how it is. And implicit is like you're saying something but you're not really saying something. Like, let's say you're talking about the weather, but really you're not talking about the weather. If you're like, the weather's so gloomy and it sucks, really you're talking about like how you're feeling in the relationship, or I don't know. That's not a direct correlation, but implicit is just you don't explicitly say what's on your mind and you kind of like beat around the bush. And so I think in Chinese culture, people, I mean, it can vary, but I feel like a lot of the time things are explicit in the fact that like my parents would tell me like work hard and do well in school, but implicit in the sense of like, oh, like when they compare me to like my cousins and say, oh, like, yeah, they're doing so well, like, wow, like look at them go. And what that really is saying is, oh, like you should be where they are and you need to work harder. And so I feel like the reason communication is so important is because that's how you tell other people your needs and your wants, your desires, your hurts, and that's how you understand each other better, and you can really function from a place of love instead of misunderstanding and miscommunication, because so many problems can arise when families don't know how to communicate, when they don't even know how to show their children that they love them, right? Like if they don't explicitly say I love you, like in Asian cultures, we don't really hear I love you, we just get a lot of fruit. And we get a lot of food as well. When our parents make a mistake, they'll knock on our doors and offer us sliced apples, and that's kind of their way of saying I'm sorry. But I think it's really important to also just explicitly say like, hey, I'm sorry for doing this, like I know it hurt you. Because like, you know, you can always, yes, you can cut as much fruit as you want and give it to your children, but that's not, like, it's unclear, right? Unless you say, what is the fruit for? And why are you sorry? And I feel like it's almost kind of like a cop-out a little bit, because you just, instead of saying I'm sorry, which really requires you to humble yourself, you just slice up some fruit and you serve it on a platter and give it to your children. But so, what was I saying? Yeah, so I guess like it's really important in any relationship to communicate, because you need to know how the other person feels so that you can adjust, so that you can accommodate to them, or so that they know how they're loved. There's this book, it's called The 5 Love Languages, and it talks about how different people receive and give love differently. So there's touch, there's words of affirmation, there's gifts, there's acts of service and quality time, and everybody's different, right? Like people might have a really strong gifts language, and so that means that they feel really loved when you get them gifts. And it's really important to kind of understand that form of communication within families, within any relationship, because if you know, you're over here thinking you love the other person a lot, but you're showing them that you love them in ways that they don't necessarily understand or they can't receive, then they might feel like you don't love them at all, right? Like for me, I'm not really a huge gifts person, and so, but I have like friends who love gift giving, and so like whenever they give me gifts, I'm like, oh, thank you. But I'm not like, wow, like I feel so loved. And it's not to say anything bad about their inability to love or that I don't love them, but it's just like, it's just not my top love language, and so I wouldn't feel it as much as if it was my top love language. I also want to touch on respect. I know in American culture, I don't know, it's like weird because we don't call our parents like Mrs. Blank, Mrs. Wu, Mrs. like Smith. We kind of call them by their first names, which is so foreign to me, because in Chinese culture, you call them mom or dad or auntie, and you don't really say their first names because it's kind of disrespectful. But I feel like it's really important to respect each other in families, knowing that the other person is important and they're valued and they're loved, and not just to like brush things aside or make them feel belittled. Because if somebody's important to you, I feel like you should give them respect, and in the same way hope that they would give you respect as well. Respect and honor, like honor your parents, so that they've lived life a lot longer than you have, and whether or not you believe it, they have life advice or just more wisdom, more life experience at least than you do. And so just trusting when they give you advice, like good sound advice, advice that you pray about, advice that you can also like talk to other people about, just trust that their advice is to help you and is to nurture you, and the intention is never to hurt you, I would believe. I want to talk about what has worked for my family and I, just to be healthier, right? So we talked about communication, so just making sure you guys are talking to each other, using 5 different love languages, whether it's implicit, explicit, and then we talked about honor and respect. And I think something that's helped my family bond together is just making time for each other, whether it's eating dinner together or taking a day out of the week to spend time with your parents, go on a walk. I don't know, like do a puzzle together or watch a movie or do board games together. I think once you start to hang out with each other, it really shows them like, hey, like you're an important person in my life, and I want to be an important person, and I want to be connected with you. And just giving them that due time is really important, because as kids, as we grow older, like we realize that our parents are also getting older with us, and like some of the times we'll never get back, because we're only going to be like 25 for a certain number of years and they're only going to be 60 for a certain number of years. So it's like you don't know what tomorrow brings, and you don't know like you don't know if you'll get to jump in the flower fields with your parents in high school, like if you wait a few years, because I don't know, that field might not be there, or you might have moved away, and like things just change. And so I think just being grateful for your family and taking the time to really acknowledge them and having dinner with them. I know for me, like even though I live here by myself, or actually when I first moved out of my parents' house back in 2019, it honestly was like, I didn't visit them very much, but then in 2020 during the lockdown, I was actually able to go over there and eat dinner with them almost every week. And I was just so, like, looking back, I'm like, man, I'm so thankful and so grateful that I was able to do that, because like those are some of it just healed a lot in me. And I really looked forward to eating all the dinners that my mom made and seeing my grandparents and just being thankful that we're all alive and we're all healthy. So just be grateful for your family. Just be grateful. And then, okay, I think that's all I have today. So a recap, well, I guess I already did a recap, but I hope that this video encourages you to reach out to your family and to communicate with them in ways that are loving and respectful. And I hope that it will encourage you to just spend time with them. And yeah, okay, love you guys. Bye.